Hi, everybody. I am international publicist Michelle Tennant. This is the 21-day PR Action Guide Challenge, and we're starting for September. So if you don't have this book, it's a workbook. See,
This
let's
is
see if you
actually
think. So this workbook right here, you can actually get at pitchrate.com. And this is a casual call, and we meet on Fridays, about 3 Fridays a month, and we've been doing so since about springtime. And so many of you have actually been in this call before, and typically when we start, you're not muted. And so many of you are joining today and you're automatically muted by our host. And that's because our wonderful friend Joan Stewart actually sent out an email about this call this week, and it's generated about 100 people who've signed up for the call. So we have a bigger group than normal. And normally it's a smaller group, doesn't matter. You're still going to get your firsthand experience because we break into sessions. So I do a little bit of lecture and what's happening from the PR front today, and then we break into small groups. And so if you're like, oh my gosh, I didn't do my hair, I didn't do this and that, it's okay. Probably the other person is feeling the same way as you when we break into breaks, okay? So how it works is there's a lot of people together. I'll do a quick lecture, and then Hannah, my trusty, she's now the host. She's busy muting everybody as they come in. We're gonna then break. We'll have about 4 minutes, and that gives everybody, it's probably about 3 or 4 people, 2 to 4 people in a group, and you each have a minute. So one of the things that we're always going to practice with the 21-day PR Action Guide is how to pitch yourself succinctly. There are some people who've sent questions ahead of time. I have your question, Diane. I have your question, Marie. And so if you ever want to do that in the future, Hannah will be putting some email addresses in the chat room that you can then save to your computer at the end of the call. And to actually do that, you're going to actually go to the bottom of the chat, click on the 3 little dots, and then save chat to your computer, but at the end of the call, so that you have like all the juicy, good information in there. So right now, I actually see people from this call that throw back maybe 10 years ago when I did like a PR happy hour, and it was like a wasabi club. So welcome. I haven't seen you all in years. I'm so excited about today. But right now, you've come to learn how to plug something. Let's start by plugging in the chat room. So right now, what are you plugging? Just put it in the chat room so that we can all have that when we save our chat at the end, okay? Now let's talk about what we're gonna actually talk about today. If you've registered for today's call, you know we're gonna talk about first impressions, bios that work. We're gonna talk about news and story ideas, the media materials. What do you actually do? How do you put together a press kit, and what are the essential ingredients? And then also the big why, which I always, if you've been on a diet, the big trend right now is, what's your why? Why are you working out? Same thing in PR, right? Because the first thing that I ask clients all the time is, well, why do you want to be on Good Morning America? Why do you want to be on the Today Show? And so if you're just now joining us because of our friend Joan, or because of Pitch Rate, or the many other places we've actually promoted this during the pandemic, I want to tell you about myself if you don't know. I have been doing PR for 30 years. I have actually seen PR transition from typewriters to Twitter. I learned PR when I was in undergraduate school for theater in Chicago. And I worked for a radio producer who worked with WGN, and I learned how to dial and smile. So we would dial, and then we would fax the pitch. Today it looks a lot different, right? With email, Twitter, Facebook, we've got instant messages, we've got about 1,001 apps that you can use. And so we're going to talk about what is the best time and the best way to pitch people, especially press professionals. It's all about the press today. So pitchrate.com is where you get the free workbook. How the 21-day PR challenge is organized is we do the first. That's my texting. I forgot to turn that down. Did you hear it? It went bong because I actually have a new texting thing. So let me turn my phone off. And if you don't have your phone turned off yet, here's your sign. So in the challenge book, it's going to be broken up into sections, and you want to do in the first week, the first section. So let me just show you here. Week 1, creating your materials. Week 2, your pitch. Then the week 3 is actually reeling in the placement, actually your interview and preparing for the interview. So if you've already done a PR campaign for this year with us, you've already done a challenge, you might want to choose a new why and a new challenge. Okay. The first thing we're going to talk about is first impressions. So I want to talk about my bio and first impressions for me. So when I go to everybody think right now, and you might have paper and pen if you want to take notes and so forth, just be comfortable. I've got my tea. I've made some chamomile teas. Always just come casual. Don't worry if you've got your makeup on or who cares, right? It's a Friday afternoon. We're all ready for the weekend. Come as you are, okay? The next 2 Fridays, come as you are. If something blows up behind me or my 84-year-old mother comes running in and needs something or something, we're just going to handle that, okay? It's very casual. Don't worry about it. First impressions. Let's pretend we're at a cocktail party. Let's pretend we're all at a cocktail party now. I know it's the pandemic and none of us have been at a cocktail party recently. And if you have, wear your mask and wash your hands. But let's just say, how would you introduce yourself, right? Some of us are going to be like, because we're talkers. Others are going to be sitting and just listening. If you're my husband, you're just like listening to people. What do you say when they say, well, what do you do for a living? What do you like to do? What do you say? Just think about that for a second. That is the most important thing that you say in your life, period, to every person on the planet. Always, forever, for the rest of your life, you'll never forget what I say right now. Right? What do you say? You know what I say? I put people on the front page of the Wall Street Journal. And they go, oh, that's interesting. Why? Or, ooh, I need to talk to you. Or, do you know what? I need to connect you with my brother. He's got a book, and it's about, how to create healthy feet. It's like the most random book, right? Always is the most random book. But I love that conversation because it actually has me and the first impression of me, boom, I'm an international publicist. All right. So that's what you put in your bio. That's it. And you make your bio very, very succinct. So if you go to Wasabi Publicity, look, you guys, there's a ton of people in this call, and that chat should be filling up. I'm looking at it over here. And if you're my husband sitting in the corner of our little cocktail party, practice saying who you are right now. Practice right here. Because in a minute, I'm going to break this up into sessions, and you're going to have to say it to a live human being. Okay. You'll be fine. So let me give you my bio. I'm just going to put it also in the chat room. You have to scroll down a little bit. I'm the second one on this list. You'll see Drew, the most important person, above me, and then my team, who makes it all happen, below me. But you'll see this. Good Morning America producer Mabel Chan calls Wasabi Publicity's chief creative officer a 5-star publicist. Michelle calls herself a storyteller to the media. For 25 years, media friends have solicited her help in crafting news stories by requesting sources, sound bites, and statistics. An award-winning writer, Michelle peppers campaigns with insight from her master's degree in human development, a BFA from a top 25 drama school, and expertise seeing PR transition from typewriters to Twitter. I've already used that on you. She's either spinning stories or spinning at the gym. After hours, she savors the Smoky Mountains with her husband, Siberian Husky, and backyard chickens. Okay, so there's my bio. If you don't have a bio that's succinct yet, and that's not even as short as it can be, then don't worry about it. That's what you're doing in the challenge, okay? But there's a few things in there, right, that help people, especially like people who are reading that bio, interact with me. Just notice, 5-star publicist, tell us that story, right? I literally had Mabel Chan, I was pitching her, giving her a source, got back to her immediately, and that's when she's like, oh my God, you're like a 5-star publicist. And immediately I said, can I quote you? And I was delighted when she said yes, because mostly they say no, right? And I've been saying that ever since. And then the storyteller to the media, that's all we're doing. So if you're like, what do we actually do with PR? What are we doing? We're telling your story. We're just telling the story of whatever you want to promote. So right now, we're going to go to a breakout session. We get to meet new people, and then you get to practice introducing yourself 45 seconds or less. And so those of you who are time people, get your minute, because you each have a minute, okay? And then we'll come back together in 4 minutes. So bye. Make sure you click on join. Make sure that when the host says, oh, there it is, join. I am so excited to actually share about, I was in a room with other writers. I identify as a writer, so if like, how do I make my living? Mostly what I'm doing, there is some gift of gab, but mostly it's writing. And so, it's interesting to see journalists, publicists, writers, ghost writers. It's not just people who are actually seeking PR, but it's also people who are like literally reinventing themselves in the marketing profession. And it really warms my heart. The reason why Drew Gerber and I decided to do these calls when the pandemic hit, we thought, how can we give back to our community? And we really wanted to help people who are pivoting. So so Marvin, Marjorie, and Judy, my life is fulfilled out of that moment. I can't tell you what a bright spot that is in my week. It almost brings me to tears. So please, if you know somebody else who can participate in these free calls and do the pivot for themselves with this book, that's the whole reason. We're giving back. We're teaching people. Let's talk a little bit about what we're actually doing. I'm actually training you to think like a journalist. So if you're already a journalist, Marvin and Marjorie, that's going to be easy for you, right? All we're going to do is like actually carry that over into then how do you promote yourself? Because I hired one of the journalists that I pitched for many years in 2008 when the economy shifted in 2008. And his name is Harrison. And Harrison is a reporter. He listens to the facts and then reports. So there's also a little piece about bragging about yourself that we just got to turn on. And when I started with the PR firm in 2002 with Drew, when we created Wasabi Publicity, I was like, there's something that I need a safe place. I need a safe place to ask the questions that I felt where I would look stupid if I asked them elsewhere. And so I actually signed up for Joan Stewart's Publicity Hound mentorship program. And many of you know Joan. And so I asked all my stupid questions to her because even though I had been a publicist, I had never been an editor of an actual venue. And she had been the editor of a business paper for many, many years. So I could ask her, how does it feel on the other side? Okay. So that's all we're really doing is training you to think like a journalist. That's why I personally hire journalists. We're still a boutique style PR firm, but I like to work with writers and freelancers and, former radio hosts, right? Because when you're at the receiving end of those pitches, there's a way that you think and that you process information. And we'll get into that. So let's go on to some of the questions and news and story ideas. So if you're actually following along, one of the things you'll see is media materials. So you don't have to raise your hand, but you can if you want to, because I'm not judging your age at all. But how many of you remember press kits from when they were file folders and like those little, remember? I was doing a conversation with Ariel Ford, Deepak Chopra's former publicist. And do you remember like how fancy they got? Like we would stick all kinds of like little things in there, like to get the attention, like splash, here's a gift, right? When you open up your file folder of photos and pitches and press releases and stuff. Well, all of that's online now. So we do it all online. And if you don't have support in doing your media materials online, this is a safe place to get that support. So in the workbook, it takes you step by step through formulas where you can actually create that. We've also, because we've been doing these calls for so long, we've actually gotten requests for more support. And so Hannah is actually going to put her email address in the chat. And listen, we'd like a few trusted people to give back to us by just giving us your opinion on these services. My business partner, Drew, said, why don't you ask for some volunteers if they would like to see some of our copy on. Thank you, Marjorie. So go ahead, and Hannah's going to put her, hannah@wasabipublicity.com, and she's going to send you that PDF, because we don't want to create any services for this group of people unless you actually need it. And we also realize that everybody's pivoting, and so money's tight. So we also want to make sure that it's at a price point that makes sense for people, those kinds of questions. That's an aside. If you want to do that, it's more like a survey. And if you're interested in participating in that survey for us, then please let Hannah know, and she will send you that PDF of that information. Now, what do we do with media materials? So I'm going to actually answer some of these questions from Diane. And I want to just, I don't see, maybe Marie is here too. Marie has been doing her PR challenges, and she's pivoted to really lead with her recycling clothing business, and she's here waiting to hear back from recycling clothing. I want to know, like, follow up, right? So not only is it about preparing media materials, which includes the thing that, your bio, 3 different bios. It should be print, broadcast, and an in-depth bio, your photos, your past media coverage. If you're going for TV, they say, show me some tape on you. That's the first thing that Good Morning America will ask me. They want to see what you look like. If you don't have a TV interview, you could do a Zoom interview like this and then send that. I've done that for some new clients, and that's worked well to attract top-tier media. In fact, I just did one 2 days ago on Wednesday. Gorgeous client, right? She just psychologist, didn't have any TV interviews. So we did a Zoom interview so I could show the press what she looks like and how she sounds. So Diane asked a few questions though. So let's get these answered inside media materials, because I think that this will really give you an idea. And then we're going to break into session, and then I want you to commit to this group, to other people, in real time, live people, what media materials you're going to put together by next Friday. Because there's no better way to get something done by actually committing yourself to another human being, okay? So Diane's asking a series of questions, and she's like, what's the best time to pitch? Is it noon? And when do you call? First of all, no, not noon. That's when they're taking their lunch, okay? I like to do 10 to 1 in the time zone that makes sense for that venue. So I'm on the East Coast, and so if I'm calling a client's press venues like the Mercury News in the Bay Area, first of all, I have to think through, they're dealing with fires right now, right? The other thing I need to think through is, when do they get into the office? So if it's a TV venue, I like to do 8 a.m. because that's right as they're dealing with their meeting for the morning. If it's a print venue, they're going to come in a little more loose because they're kind of like, all over, they're just following the news. 10 a.m. is good for them. Right? So then that's what time for me? That's in the afternoon for me. So I think in terms of their time zone. And then also call and voicemail detail. Okay, if you're under the age of 35, raise your hand. I don't see anybody. Under the age of 35. Any millennials on the call? Where's our Bo? We're like, oh, good. We've got a few. Okay. They'll back me up. Okay. So some of our millennials, if you want to speak, Hannah, let's go ahead and unmute some of our millennials, Hannah, okay? I'm curious.
Okay, Samantha, where's Samantha?
Samantha, do you ever leave voicemails, long voicemails for other people in your life?
No, never.
Right. Everybody, hear it again. Samantha, will you listen to a long voicemail?
No. I'll just see that I missed the call and get back.
Okay, everybody. So the rest of us that are above the age of 35, we think that millennials, who are primarily the ones that we're targeting because they're at the entry level of most of these press venues, we think they love voicemail. And I actually was working with a woman, I am not going to tell you who it was, and she was older than me, and she was schooling me on how to do PR. And you know, egos, we all love it, right? And I was like, okay, tell me. So she called on behalf of me, a millennial 23-year-old at a very top tier tech venue, and left a 4-minute voicemail. Samantha, what? Shay was the other one. There was also another millennial. So let's see what if I left you. I didn't do it, but it was somebody who was calling on my behalf because she was helping me. What do you think happened to that 4-minute voicemail?
So I would have, Sherry, I don't know if I can chime in, but
Okay,
I would have
Sherry.
listened for a minute. I would have gotten really mad probably at minute 2, and I would have stopped because I would have been so offended that this was a voicemail.
See, everybody? Okay, don't leave voicemails. What is going on with you, right? So and I actually told her, I said, if you ever do that again, I won't work with you. She got so offended, and I said, listen, now, so Sherry and Samantha, if I sent you a private, encrypted, exclusive message on Signal, how would that, or let's even not even go as exclusive as Signal. Let's just go like on Instagram, or, you know, it was really nice and lovely, and I acknowledged something you just posted. How would that have landed for you? So let's go with Samantha first.
I think I would have responded. I mean, I'm on there every day checking it for clients. And so it's not something that when you get a voicemail, you're like, oh, and then you have to sit there and wait and listen to it. And sometimes it's fuzzy, but I'm already on the social media platforms. I'm on it for myself. I'm on it for clients. And then you see the message and it's almost kind of like nice. You're like, oh. And then
Perfect. Thank you, Samantha. All right, let's get somebody who is older than me. I'm 51. Anybody who's older than me. All right, Dorothy. I saw Dorothy's hand. Dorothy Wilhelm. By the way, you also can do, in the participants, you can raise your hand digitally.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
Dorothy. Now, let me ask you this. If I'm calling you and I leave you a voicemail that's 4 minutes, will you listen to it?
Honey, I'm 86. I'll listen to anything.
Okay.
And I go back to those early days, and I'm trying to keep up because I do have a podcast and a newspaper column and all that still.
Perfect. So I actually ask myself, who am I pitching? Right? If I'm pitching Dorothy, I'm going to call Dorothy on the phone and I'm going to leave the most lovely, Dorothy, I love your podcast. Oh my God, you talked about this crock pot recipe or whatever it was, right? And I would just love to talk, call me back, call me back tomorrow morning, because you're going to probably take a few days to get back to me, right?
Nap.
Totally, right?
Right.
Or I might send you a card. You would love that.
I would love that.
Yes, you would.
Okay.
Samantha and Sherry, I would send instant message or a text or something very short.
Yeah,
okay?
Very good.
Okay, good. So thank you, Dorothy. Thank you, Samantha. Thank you, Sherry. So I hope that answers your question, Diane. Do not leave a very detailed voicemail in today's marketplace unless you're pitching somebody like Dorothy, okay? She also asked about guarantees and how many messages for follow-ups and so forth. Look, if you're doing PR and you're promising a client guaranteed coverage, you better be placing paid. It's paid media, right? Because we don't have control over earned media coverage. So where's Marjorie? Let's unmute Marjorie. Marjorie's she's not only talking about her book on walking, but she's also a journalist herself. So Marjorie, what if I called you and I said, I promised my client that you would cover her in your next article? What would you say to that?
Oh, sorry. You never promise somebody that, because if nothing else, I have to commit everything to a journalist. I have to commit everything to an editor. I always will respond, yes, I'll pass that by my editor. Thank
Okay,
you
now
for
watch what
letting me
happens,
know.
everybody. Watch what happens to some people. Marjorie, I can't believe you can't put my client in that article. I thought we were friends.
It's out of my hands.
Marjorie, I'm never going to speak to you again.
I'm so sorry to lose your friendship.
So this is actually happening, you all. Don't do that to poor people like Marjorie. Can you believe that? I was kayaking with another journalist one time, and she goes, and she was telling what people said to her, and they said those things, and I was like, what is wrong with people? I guess they don't understand that that you have a boss, that
They
you have
think that they think I'm the editor, and it's a real, but my editor also will say, well, I'll have to check with Marjorie if she can cover that. So we back each other up.
Okay.
It's a small paper.
Thank you. So thank you, Marjorie. Okay.
You're welcome.
So now who's our podcasters in the room? So I need to speak to a podcaster, somebody who has their own podcast. All right, let's go back to Dorothy. Dorothy's raising her hand. Okay, so let's unmute Dorothy. Can you see her hand? Okay, so Dorothy, can
Yes.
you control what's in your podcast?
Yes.
Okay, could I actually pay you to mention a product in your podcast?
No. I go back to the early days of broadcasting when we wouldn't do that. They do now. but
Perfect answer. Yes. So again, even inside so Dorothy's old school like me, we separate the two, but a lot of the younger millennials today, they will take your money to say whatever you want them to say. Okay. Thanks, Dorothy. Now,
Yeah.
what I want you to do, and by the way, how many messages? She said, Diane's like, how many times do you follow up? And I want Marie to hear this too. 3 times. I follow up 3 times on the one pitch. And then that's it. And it might be a card, it might be a call, it might be an email. That's 3 times. Do not harass people, okay? And then you might pitch them the following month or the next quarter with a completely different topic. But the same topic, don't do more than 3. They've already seen your press release and your pitch and your materials that you've sent over, your media alert, your photo opportunity. Those are all formulas that you'll find in here. Now, what I want you to do is we're going to break into groups, and I want you to talk about why you're doing PR. And that's before our lecture. When we come back, we're going to talk about the reason why you're doing the PR, because that's going to influence the type of pitch and materials that you're actually doing. And it might be something like, I want to sell more books. I want people to donate to my charity. I want to increase my followers on Facebook, stuff like that. Okay, so share why you're doing PR in the next breakout. So Allison, what's your big why? We're gonna work a little bit, and Cornelia was also in my group. So Allison, what is your big why on doing PR?
The big why is for exposure to grow my business, and right now it's to sell a book for teachers on online presence, how to put their personality online so that it's not all about technology, but creating community with their students, even though they've never met them personally. In a lot of cases, they still haven't seen them face to face.
So the thing that Allison was talking about was local press, right? This also gets back to another question that Diane was asking. You know, when you get local press, sometimes it doesn't sell books, right? Allison may do I suggested to her that she do, journalists by and large, a lot are furloughed, and a lot of the editors are looking for content that they can just plug and play. And so they just, you know, like I had a business journal say to me recently at a very large market, can your client just write up an article and I'll just give her a byline, just because they're really hurting for content right now, and with diminished staffs trying to keep up with the news of the day. So if Allison just writes a story on here's 3 ways to see in body language that somebody's lying. There you go, written by Allison, author of this book. Or here's 3 ways to connect with your students online while doing a Zoom thing, right? And then that maybe goes into an educational or parenting thing. It may or may not sell books. So really the thing about it is that the thing about PR is it's earned editorial media. It's not intended to close a sale. It's more about, hey, let's get excited about the possibility. So in a sales cycle, it's about enrollment. It's not about registration, actually closing the sale. That's advertising. That's paid media or owned media, right? So you get to somebody's website and it takes them through a funnel, a sales process that then has them purchase. Think about it in terms of a concert, right? Woo! Rick Springfield was the first concert I ever went to. Jesse, I want Jesse's girl. I'm a little tone deaf. So, but anyway, Rick Springfield, right? Oh, Rick Springfield is coming into town. I mean, my ears would perk up and I'd be like, oh, that's the possibility. That's the enrollment. I'm interested. That's really all that PR is supposed to do, earned editorial. Now, I hear an ad on the radio station about where to buy a ticket, or I get a Facebook ad that closes me so I actually purchase the ticket. That is the registration part. That's the sales part. So if you've got clients or people who are asking for, God, I got in the local paper, but I didn't sell anything, or it didn't move anything. It's not supposed to, right? They're mistaken about. Now, once people hear you and they get moved by your story, they might write you a check. That happened to our nonprofit that actually places war dogs, bomb sniffing dogs, in retirement. So the dogs are no longer sniffing bombs, but they're now retired. So they got featured on Fox National, and someone was so inspired by the nonprofit that they wrote a $20,000 check. That's rare though, okay? What you're gonna have to do is actually leverage that placement through your owned assets. What are owned assets? Your website, your social media accounts, and so forth. Or you're going to put it on a Google ad campaign and then promote it. Or you're going to talk about it in a YouTube video and then promote it. Or you're going to put it in your newsletter. You know who's a master at this? Joan Stewart, right? So she'll have content, and then boom, she's got that registration link at the bottom. Okay, so if you want to look at somebody who's leveraging the way to leverage sales, look at Joan's newsletters and model that. So the big why. So right now, just in the chat, because I'm going to read it later, what's your why? Why are you doing PR? Everybody, put it in there. And what are you going to do this next week? What type of media material are you going to commit to? And I'm going to randomly choose somebody from the chat next Friday and interact with them live. So if you don't want that, probably shouldn't put it in the chat. But it is the time of your life. It could change everything. Right, Marjorie? Marjorie's got a lot of results to share. So good. Well, that is the thing that I really wanted to cover with you today. So the other thing I want to talk about is who journalists are. And since we have journalists on the phone, I'm going to give them an opportunity to also tell us what their life is like. So I actually I did a blog entry. And by the way, if you are wanting to, if you go to the wasabipublicity.com website and then scroll to the bottom at blog, you'll see my blog entries between calls. If you go to the YouTube channel for Wasabi Publicity, you'll see these calls. And Hannah will make sure that everybody gets a copy of this call. So don't worry about that, but that's just if you're like seeking for things. I talked about me versus we in my blog entry this week. And the conversation, basically what it is I had a client, she's with the nonprofit Humane Society Silicon Valley. You know, they're dealing with the fires and the pandemic, and, you know, nonprofits have a hard task right now in today's climate. And we were talking, she said, Sandy was like, you know, it's like the language of me or we. And in corporate America, it's usually the language of me. What have you done for me lately? She says, but nonprofits, the language of we. We're always about the community. And I said, same with PR and journalists, right? Journalists, producers are, what can you do for my audience, for the public? What type of difference are you making with the public? And that's really the thing that we want to, when we're serving the media or thinking like the media, what's in their world that I can make their job easier. And we always tell our clients, I'm not I know you're paying us, but I'm actually working for the media, right? I'm actually making their job easier. And what's their reality? Their reality is they're in a hurry. They have to entertain, enlighten, or educate their audience. And these might be readers, listeners, viewers. They need their information easier and faster than ever before. That's one reason why we use press kits, by the way, because it's just a link, right? So then if you've got a millennial that you're dealing with, you can just link the information and they can pick and choose as they want. They want to be treated with respect, like as evidenced with Marjorie. A lot of times people have these expectations that in their world is like, what? I don't need to cover you. That's not what my editor wants, you know? Or a podcast like Dorothy, like, you want me to sell what? You don't even know my world. I don't even do that because that's disgusting. That's called, because we used to like, oh my gosh, if you'd gotten to an editor and you were supposed to be talking to an advertising executive in the same press venue, that was, 30 years ago, you just would have never combined the two. We had the FCC like forbid it. Laws forbid that, right? Today it's more gray. They also are constantly meeting deadlines. I've seen how difficult this is because in June, in these calls, I shared about my personal struggle with an asphalt plant trying to rezone property 1,100 feet from my property. It's still going on, by the way, and you all can read about that at the blog. But the thing about it is I noticed that I'm always meeting deadlines because my media friends are meeting deadlines. And so people who are retired or who have a lot of time on their hands, they're like, what do you mean you're always on deadline? It just doesn't compute. So you've just got to think to yourself that I'm calling in to an editor who literally has 1 minute to speak to me. And what can I say in 45 seconds that will change that editor's life? And that's what we're learning here on this call. So let's hear from a few of our other journalists on the meeting today, and tell us, what is your life like about deadlines? Marvin, I don't know if you want to share. I'm putting you on the spot because we were in a room together. Would you mind sharing with us a little bit about your life as a journalist?
Yeah, well, one thing I should say to you, you have to make a differentiation. You're right that the media are in a hurry, but there's a very big difference between somebody that covers business news or music, cultural arts. There are beats on the paper where time is not the essence, the uniqueness of the idea is. So what I'm really trying to express is that in my life, what I'm looking for is something that is different than anything we have ever written about. I know it sounds lofty, but a good PR person has to work with a client and says, what makes her product, her service newsworthy? What does she do differently than her competitors do? And then you start. There's no guarantee in life, as you pointed out, but you start, because the worst thing that a reporter wants to see is writing about something that looks like something he wrote about last week.
That's right. And so and so, for example, if I'm now researching Marvin and I wanted to pitch Marvin and we put his name in Google, which is a topic we dealt with last month by ways, I just had people Google their name, which if you've not Googled your name, just do it now. Just Google your name and see what comes up. And if it's not related to the things that you're promoting, that's a problem. And that's what you're out to fix this month with your challenge, okay? So we would look at what Marvin's covered, and the biggest pitfall is if, hey, Marvin, I saw that you did something on the forest fires or the environment. I've got something to tell you about the environment, but it's the exact same thing that he just covered. He's like, I've already covered that. Give me something else to cover, right? Or what's next in the storyline of this for the public at large, right? Think about it in terms of politics. Think about it in terms of, politics tends to like drag everybody down. So let's talk about it in terms of babies. Dr. Diane's on the phone. So she and her husband help with maternal health. Okay. So in the trajectory of a woman having a baby, what's next? So I got pregnant. Okay. And there's a lot right now, by the way, about gender reveal parties. right? You could have fun with, like, because it's part of the problem that we have fires, right? But then after your gender reveal, then your nutrition, then preparing for the birth. You see, there's a natural storyline of everything. And the same thing happens with the news. So usually it's like the breaking news, it's happening, everybody's freaked out, it's the drama of the story. Then it's, now what are we going to do? What did we learn? As a society, what's next? That's a natural storyline of a news cycle. So next week, we're going to actually talk about the second part of your book. So have your media materials ready, and then we're going to get into the actual pitching, which we did some today, but we're going to really get into what are you actually saying to the press, okay? And then what are you actually promoting, and how does it connect? How does making a difference for the public actually connect with your why? And that's usually what's missing for people. And then they make it all about me instead about we. See, nobody cares about my asphalt plant. You don't really care that I'm fighting an asphalt. Just tell the truth, right? You're like, oh, I'm sorry, Michelle. That sucks for you. But what you do care about is how we interact with all of us as homeowners, that we interact with our local government so that zoning works for all of us in the community. Or that we all participate in local planning process so that the growth of the streets and the roads and the traffic and the environment, the parks, that's where we can all get like on the same side of the street. But cares about like, oh, her stupid asphalt plant. See, and when I tell clients, I'm sorry, nobody really, if you say to somebody your baby's ugly, it's not popular. But that's really what's happening when you're calling the press and they go, oh yeah, just send me an email about that and I'll just call you if I'm interested. Right, Marjorie, right, Marvin? Like, you may look at it and you think, on that phone if somebody's interested or not, or if they're engaging with you or not. And if you followed up 3 times and it's crickets chirping on the other side, move on to somebody else. That's a no. Okay? So let's take maybe 2 questions before we end for the day. Who's got a question? So you can raise your hand by doing it digitally under participants, or if I can see your video, we can just do this. Who's got a question? Let's just take 2. I was that thorough, really? I know Elizabeth always has a question. So, okay, Mitch.
Could you, hi, could you make it crystal clear what the assignment is between now and next week? What are the deliverables you want us to bring to the next meeting?
Oh, good, Mitch. So let's get inside your campaign a little bit, okay?
Yeah.
So what's your why?
I have a passion to help people get the vacations they want and deserve. I've been in the travel world for 11 years. I've traveled the world for 4 decades. And with all that's going on, I need to re-inspire folks to consider travel once the pandemic has been handled. Or
what I can also see for your platform is what to do right now if you're going stir crazy, right?
Planning,
kind of look
planning. Look it
exactly.
Up. Have a virtual experience, exactly.
All right, so everybody write what I'm telling Mitch down. This is your homework too, okay? So Mitch, your homework is to Google your name.
Done it.
Okay, great. What's missing inside the Google results that you would like to see in there? Does your name come up first? Is it related to travel? Okay, what's missing?
Well, I have a lot of older things that I did that are still sticking. So they sort of get in the way.
All right. Define older. What does older mean? Like how many years?
I'm older. Things that are 20 and 30 years ago that still stick.
Okay, good. Okay, got it. Okay. So, yeah, you need a refresh. You need some current results because people are going to be like, okay, Mitch, and then it's old, right? It's not something fresh.
Right.
So for you, I want you to create a hashtag movement.
Okay.
Okay. Hashtag what? I don't know. Hashtag staycation. Hashtag Mitch says digitally.
Well,
okay, what is it?
I have hashtag make memories, not regrets.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay. I want, when we come next Friday, see how many blog entries, press releases, pitches you can write with that hashtag. Now, what I would do with that hashtag in 1 week's time is I would do videos on YouTube with that hashtag in it. I would do posts on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, and I would hashtag everywhere. I would do blog entries with that hashtag. And then all of a sudden, when you Google Mitch Creighton and hashtag make memories not regrets, page 1 every time for Mitch.
I've also done MMNR, and I don't know whether that works as well.
I don't know, people, they're not going to just trip on that. And then the other thing, so if you guys are the, like, teacher tell me what to do, page 1 through page 55, complete that.
That's what I was looking forward to. Thank you.
I love that question. Right? It's the first time I've given, like, the 5th grade teacher in me is like, students do pages 1 through 55. I'm going to ask who did it next Friday. Okay, good.
Yes,
Thank
teacher. Do you need an apple?
Yes! I love apples. Also cheese and gummy bears. Okay, so you can find my address and just send that stuff to me. Okay.
Just came back from Wisconsin, have a fridge filled with cheese curds, just to let you know.
Mail it. Okay. See, that's the why we do this for free, because all kinds of stuff. Like, I have banana bread sitting on my porch all the time around the asphalt plant because we got 10,000 rural neighbors united, and they're just so grateful. So they just leave food on the front porch. It's awesome. One more question before we go.
Katie.
Hi, everyone. Oh, never mind.
Hi, Sherry.
Sorry,
Well,
no. I had
all right.
Katie with her hand up. Yeah.
All right, Katie with her hand up. Katie.
Yeah. Hi, so I'm a communications consultant. I do various types of things, one of them being public relations, and I work on different projects. So one project that I've been working on, I'm going to get to the question, media lists. So I have a good knowledge of the bloggers, the journalists in one of the projects and that kind of arena, that area of who the key people are, getting to know them. But now I'm also working on a project in the education space, and I don't know the media as well. So I'm doing my research on that. I don't use any sort of service. So is it still just kind of do the research, find the people, put it in a spreadsheet?
Yeah, Katie, I want you to, the short answer for everybody is you go to their website, go to the bottom, contact us, and that's how you reach them. But that's hard for a lot of people. It's very manual. Katie, I want you to email hannah@wasabipublicity.com, and I want you to do that survey, because that's part of what we're offering is those media list support, because that's what we're finding a lot of independents are needing. Okay?
Great. Yep.
And then let's squeeze in Sherry before we got 1 minute. Sherry?
Thank you so much. So I took some advice that you gave me a few weeks ago. I'm representing now the Black Travel Summit. So it's kind of funny. And the topic of the Black Travel Summit's webinar this year is called movement. So like you and Mitch were just like speaking my language.
Oh, perfect.
So I got in contact with a friend from Departures, and he's going to do some coverage. He's going to pass along my media kit for Black Travel Summit. This is the problem. This summit hasn't written anything. So I'm like, how do I make a pitch? Like, how do I make a pitch for like this company that's going to do a summit? I know what it's about. I don't, part of me, I guess I have fear in my pitch that it's, what this whole thing is about is that we're, celebrating Black people in the industry and getting ready for movement, kind of what Mitch is talking about. So it's just a celebration of Black people traveling, Black people who work in the industry, people of color. It's called Black Travel Summit.
Yeah.
It's more inclusive than that. Anyway.
I think that so I want you to, review, go ahead, work ahead and go to page 65 of the book, Sherry.
Thank you.
Okay, that's perfect. And we'll review that some more. Somebody said something. You're so welcome, everybody. I'm now getting thank yous. I appreciate that. The reason why I say gummy bears instead of gummy bears is because my mom's German, and when I was under the age of 5, that's how she bribed me to do anything. So gummy bear, Michelle, gummy bear. And so that's why I default to that. So until next Friday, everybody have a wonderful weekend, and thank you so much.